I think that most people are not afraid of their darkness. They're just afraid of what they can achieve and really do and their power, their untapped power.
Welcome to today's episode of What We Tell Our Daughters. This was actually my very first ever recorded episode of this show. And so, if you notice that I'm a little bit rough around the edges, that's because I wasn't quite sure how to ask these questions and how to show up in a way that's helpful for all of you. So, bear with me a bit. I hope you enjoy it. We dive deep into somatic work, into healing trauma, into how to do more with less. And we also touch on psilocybin microdosing because Marie, who you'll learn from today, lives in Oregon where it's legal and she is a licensed therapist. And it is becoming a much bigger part of people's lives. So stay tuned. I'm very happy to have you, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Okay, well, Marie, welcome to What We Tell Our Daughters. I'm so happy to have you and talk to you today. First things first, Marie is a trauma therapist and a somatic coach. And now she has an amazing business called Somatic CEO, where she helps women take control over their business and achieve more by mastering their nervous system. We're going to have you tell us more about that, but I think that's along the right lines. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. Talk about all my favorite things.
Yeah. So first, I would love to know, what led you to want to do this type of work in the world with women? Because I think it's just a pillar of our health and our ability to achieve more in life without burning ourselves out. So I would love to hear from you, just what inspired you to create what you've created?
Well, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's a little bit of their own story, right? I'm sure you can relate, like what has happened to you. And I used to be a teacher, and I had a girl, a 7-year-old girl, say this to me once. She said, "You become what you needed," right? And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And that has evolved because the teacher was not it for me. Um, and so I am becoming what I always needed, which was just somebody to show other humans what they're capable of doing and creating. And I think that most people are not afraid of their darkness. They're just afraid of what they can achieve and really do and their power, their untapped power.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it's so true. That's so insightful of that 7-year-old to realize that
I know.
she's
She
going to be
wasn't
a big
expecting the
healer.
world right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When when women come to work with you, how do you start with them? What are they usually looking for?
Yeah, so in my therapy practice and my coaching practice, how I explain how I work is that the first thing we ever do is build a foundation of safety. And safety can come what I call through information healing by just teaching somebody like the basics of neuroscience, like how your nervous system and how your brain actually works and what it's designed to do, right? For example, if you're not able to sleep at night because you're thinking about what you have to do tomorrow, which I can relate to, that's key awareness that your nervous system is probably more keyed into being in a hyper aroused state. But what a lot of people don't recognize is that we are geared towards that because we have primitive brains that back in the day, living in caves, if we didn't tune ourselves into listening to what's outside of the cave, to listening to what could happen to us, we could die. And it was the people that were keyed into that probably survived. And we now in the 21st century are still living in that primitive brain because the one purpose of our body, as you probably know, is to keep us alive. And so just knowing those things can help you to understand yourself and be like, oh, that's nothing wrong with me. It's actually just how my body works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an important piece of the puzzle. And I see this with women all the time who are struggling to reach the next level of their healing because they've done everything right with nutrition and they've done everything right with supplements, they think, or with sleep. But maybe they have things from their past that they're still holding on to and they don't even realize it. And it's really stopping them from getting to the next level. Do you find that the women you are working with or that are coming to you, I say women, is it mostly women? Are there some men in there too?
Yeah, it's mostly women. I do coach a man right now, but it's mostly women that come to me. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I made that assumption because we're the doers, and so we often forget to take care of ourselves in that process.
Mhm.
But when they come to you, do they recognize that their nervous system needs healing? Like, is that something that we should all kind of have our ears open to as we're going throughout our daily lives? Like things that might pop up for us that would give us a signal that we need to do some of this work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on which stage they're coming in at. So I have like three avatars that I kind of see people coming in at, and I relate them to CEO spirit animals. So the one avatar that maybe I work with is I call a hummingbird, because a hummingbird is flighty. That they go quick, right? And I think that's when you're in part of the journey of your CEO life of living in the hustle culture of just going for it. And like, as you know, I've been stuck there before of just like getting after it and like doing everything you can and just like barreling through. But when you are actually in that type of mindset, what I've kind of cumulated the last 10 years is that we are in that type of mindset because of trauma. I posted a video on my YouTube that got a lot of views, but is basically saying like you're an entrepreneur because of your trauma, which is a little bit controversial because you have been through things and so you're trying to get out of things and that pushes you to be motivated, which is great. But you stay in that zone then. And living in fight or flight is just a like one way ticket to burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not fun. It's not enjoyable. I was literally like be thinking about my business while I was hanging out with my daughter. And if I think about that now, looking back, that's not the type of parent I want to be. And my family comes before my business. So, but recognizing that and having the self-awareness and being able to heal that energy, when you have that, then you move up to what I call like more wolf energy. And so that's when you're able to take in more information and you're wanting to collaborate because maybe you don't feel as jealous of people around you and you want to work together. You want to interview other women on your podcast. Yeah, you just want to like get to know because you're curious about people and that helps you grow. And then after that stage, I see more people being like in the elephant zone, which is they're moving a little bit more methodical, but they're still afraid of not living up to their full potential.
Yeah. You said so many great things in there, and I think like I love the personas, and I think it really allows us to align with one of them when we're looking at like which path fits us. Um, we were talking about trauma, but we haven't really talked about what trauma really means, and I think that's important because there's so many different ways to think about it, and it's thrown around in many different situations. So when you're talking about it, what does trauma mean to you?
Oh gosh. Thank you for asking that because I was looking through a bunch of old therapy stuff that I used to actually use. And there was one from therapistaid.com that a lot of therapists used to use. Maybe they still do. And it was like the definition of trauma is like somebody that's been to war and like natural disasters. And I was like, oh, no, that's not it. The simplest way that I define trauma is a lot of what trauma is just not having your needs met. That's what
Mm,
of it as. And when that happens, it's your nervous system is not able to get to a safe point, to a regulated space. And so, how that interweaves with what I do in internal family system, which is parts work by Richard Schwartz, is that we have like inner wounded children or teenagers or younger versions of us that are literally trapped in those moments of time. They're frozen in those moments of time. So like if you experience something now, it's like you're continuously living that same energy of something that happened to you long ago. And
Mm.
it's connected to many different things. So I think of it like daisy chains, because daisy chain is like a war term of like bombs that are like strapped together, linked together. And like if you're experiencing something now that triggers you, it feels intense because it's probably happened to you several times of that similar need not being met.
Wow. Yeah. So it's just living in your body over and over again. And
Continuously.
how do you release that?
Yeah. So once you build that safety, that's the next step because that's the number one question I see. I see people coming in mostly asking, how do you release this? Like, I know this, and maybe actually somebody has just left me in the knowing. And that is actually harmful when people just leave you there because then you like have information, but like you don't know what to do with that information. So you feel stuck then. And feeling stuck just means you have stuck energy in your body because energy is a real thing. It's like a scientific term. And we know that energy cannot be destroyed. But what we do together somatically is that we feel that energy. We start to understand the story connected to the energy through parts work, and we release it. And when we release it, we translate it, transmute it into something different because that's all you can do with energy.
That's beautiful. I love that so much. And
Yeah.
it's so true to the way the world works that we're all just so interconnected. And if we can send that energy off in a different way, or hopefully transformed into a more beautiful way, slowly we can make this planet collectively a little better too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to say like a word to you, and I'll say, I'm going to say a word to you, and you close your eyes and just see like this is how energy works. And you just notice how your body responds to this word alone.
Mm. It just like tensed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because oftentimes what I find there are exiles or inner children within us that are wounded that feel very alone and sad and unsafe and powerless. But if I say a different word, you notice this safety.
It's like getting a warm hug.
Yeah. It's the word. And some people might feel really triggered by that word too, or the
Mm.
tone of voice, because some people feel like I can resonate with this, that it doesn't feel safe to feel calm in your body.
Mm.
So that's why I do integrate the parts work because it's showing you that there are different protective parts, or I call them gatekeepers, that will not allow you to think differently or to feel into your body. Because for a lot of us, we have spent our entire life pushing away emotional pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I can resonate with that. My grandma
Yeah.
was a great teacher, but she was sunny side up, like with everything in life. And so everything had a positive side to it. And so what I've come to realize in motherhood actually is that that is something that is beautiful in its own way, but it can also be very harming because it doesn't give permission to feel the feelings and to actually process and move through them.
Yeah, and, like, it seems really basic, but, like, that's what I see entrepreneurs coming to me with. They were never it's because I mean, I'm versed what I'm really versed at too is getting down to the nitty-gritty, like the root like you are, and what the nitty-gritty usually is a mother, father, or abandonment wound, and and usually it's like an overlap of, like, a mother and abandonment wound or a father and abandonment wound or all 3. And what that means often for people is that nobody held space for certain emotions or just like unpleasant emotions. And so, like, there's a lot of kids stuck in time in their room feeling angry or sad, and nobody is with them trying to help them understand that feeling. And so then they go out and do things like self-harm later in life, or then they like,
Mhm.
engage in like, I'm going to cope by just eating a lot of food or restricting myself. And like, those are all just maladaptive, behaviors to cope with what's happening.
Yeah, that's so insightful because I think sometimes we don't follow the trail of crumbs back to where it started. We just see this problem now and we try to fix it. So much like Western medicine, like let's just put a band aid on it and call it good instead of really getting to the root of things, which I think maybe a lot of us don't realize that we have a root to get to, you know? I think maybe we think that, oh, this is just
Yeah.
something that's happening to me in this moment, or it's because I had this stressful thing at work happen last week, or whatever it may be. We don't really realize that maybe these things, even if we considered our childhood good or healthy or happy, are maybe still hanging on to us.
Yeah, totally. I think, there's a lot of information out there that like this might be a little controversial, but I don't really believe in the DSM. Like I understand it, but like I've actually seen it hurt more people than I have seen it help them. I used to be like a mental health therapist in community mental health, so I would have to like work with people that are like in need of the most help, and I would have to take them back to a fluorescent light room, like a small room, and just meeting them and have to diagnose them in 2 hours. And it was insane. I don't really feel like it helped a lot of people. I mean, I can see why it helps to have like a certain lane to understand yourself more, but
Mhm.
then you're just given that, and then it's like, okay, now you need to take medication, and now we're going to do this talk therapy with you, which is mostly pushed out. Um, Hopefully now we're learning that there's more like it's a body thing versus just a head thing. We're not just up, top up, just our head. We're a whole body. And so like I see things like ADHD. I've been diagnosed with that. And I think actually, as I've explored it and just noticing the patterns of what my clients resonate, a lot of them also resonate with ADHD and or anxiety. And how I just really see it, if you look at the nervous system, it's just most of us pushed up in the hyper arousal, like dominant sympathetic fight or flight space, because so much of the ADHD symptoms that they're like resonating with overlap with what your nervous system is doing. And I
Mm.
really just see ADHD more as like a condition that has been programmed throughout history. I think people with ADHD, just like any diagnosis, have been around forever. I think people with ADHD have been like the explorers and the scientists and the creatives, the ones that just push boundaries and just did the thing anyway, like that people thought was crazy. And I just think it's like we're just constantly evolving and adapting in different ways. And the world is also changing too. So now we have all this like technology, which is another layer to it. So I think there's also biology to it, what's happening environmentally, but what physically has happened to us through our behaviors. And it's like if we looked at it that way, we could see ourselves in a different light instead of like thinking, "Oh, I'm just stuck like this." Because I don't take any Adderall. I used to. I just use microdosing and I use neuroscience and parts work, and that has helped me sit down and be able to focus and be like, "Hey, this is the lane I'm staying in," and I can identify when I'm trying to leave that lane because I'm so good at like, "Oh, I'm gonna hyper focus about this now." We're like, "Nope, we're sticking to the plan, Marie. We're gonna go back to this, and this is where we're gonna be, and that's okay. It's safe to be here."
Really, well, two things. I saw on Instagram, I think it was an Instagram the other day that said women are being diagnosed with ADHD at like double the rate of men now. And the question was like, do we really have more ADHD, or is science just finally catching up with us and what it looks like in a woman versus what it looks like in a man? So that piece is really interesting to me. I also think that maybe all mothers are a little bit ADHD. Like I think about the Barbie movie and the scene where she's talking about just the number of things that we hold in our brain in a day and how non-conducive that is to actually sitting down and getting anything done because there's literally 700 things playing in the background.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's just a crazy world we live in now, being entrepreneurs. And like you were saying, like thinking about your business when you're with your daughter, because now we work from home too. There's no separation of space and time. And this is when I'm with my child, or this is when I'm trying to figure out how to make this business work. Like it just all forms into this one giant mush ball in your brain.
Yeah. And then, it's like that it's a push-pull, like, if we're trying to work around our kids and our kids are not allowing it, then we're more prone to getting upset or, like, lashing out, and it's not their fault, they just want connection.
Yeah.
That's I've decided and made a priority that my kids always come before my business because my children will never be this little again,
Yes,
but I
I know.
feel that I was battling myself with that, and I felt like I am behind because I felt jealous of other people, and I had to really get into that protective part of jealousy, and what it taught me is, like, going through that emotional pain of feeling jealous of others, showed me that it's only I only feel jealous because I see my own greatness, and I see their greatness, and I know that I can have that too,
Hmm.
but it takes time and you have to be patient. Like there's no roadmap for entrepreneurship and it's a marathon. And that's why I advocate for entrepreneurs to really prioritize their nervous systems because if you do that now and lay the foundation, you will be much happier. You will enjoy your journey. I enjoy my journey a heck of a lot more now because
Yeah.
I'm not battling.
That's a really important message because we don't have to burn the candle to succeed. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the narrative so often that we hear.
Yeah, like I saw, another coach who I well respect, who's a, business somatic coach for other healers. And she was saying the only way to succeed is to work on the weekends. And my instant reaction was, like maybe it is for you and that works for you, but most of the time I don't want to work on the weekends and that does not dictate my ability to succeed because everyone is coming from a different space of how much time, energy, even privilege they have to do what they're doing. And I don't think that that should be a roadblock for somebody if they're passionate about what they want to do.
Yeah, that's so true. We have to remove all those barriers and all of those narratives and just give people permission to create what is right for them and what fits in with their life. So, on that note, I want to ask you more about microdosing because I know that you utilize it in your practice. And in what way do you see it the most helpful, maybe for you personally and for your clients?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll tell the story of when I first used it. I used it in 2020 when COVID was happening. I had just had my first daughter and I had nearly died from the event because I hemorrhaged during the experience during an emergency C-section. And that was really scary because that gave me symptoms of PTSD, which now I think is actually pretty cool because now I fully understand what it feels like to have that much trauma in your body. And so, like, when I had that going on, if I was sitting in the room with you and you have like a really calm energy, I would wanna, like, rip my skin off because the story in my head would be like, "Oh, she thinks I'm so weird, I'm acting so weird, like, she can tell something is wrong." And I would wanna rip my skin off because it felt so uncomfortable to be there, and why it felt so uncomfortable is because my nervous system could not get regulated like the other person, your nervous system every nervous system wants to match regulation. But for some of us, we can't do that, and it makes us feel insane a little bit
Hmm.
because we can't do it. Or like, what's wrong with me that I can't just like be here and lay on my yoga mat, for example, and like breathe. And so I knew that I had to do something about it, so I hired a coach and did tapping and parts work with her, and then I also, started meditating more, I used water as a modality of healing, and then I added microdosing. And the cool thing about microdosing, because I had never done small amounts of psilocybin, was that a month into it, I was, like, folding the laundry, and I had gotten into an argument with my partner, Kyle, and I was, like, playing the story in my head and being like, "Da, da, da," like, so mad at the situation, and I started to be cognizant of the story in my head, and then it was like this angry part started to, like, talk with, I think, which was more of my self energy of, like, who I am, and the self energy was like, "Hey, it's okay. Everything's okay. You could just, like, drop the story and it'd be okay." And I was like, "Okay." So that part felt safe to drop the story, and then we we just felt, like, calm and, like, peaceful in our body, and then we just realized it actually wasn't such a big deal, and then we just went on with our day, and that's when I was really amazed that I could just do that, because what it allowed me to do was just live in my experiences versus just living in something that wasn't even real.
That's really amazing. The stories we tell ourselves are so predictive of how our life plays out if we don't have the ability to separate the story from what is real or what is really valuable. So that's a really cool way to explain it. And I love that it came from this small insight with your partner, but something that's extrapolated to like every experience you have in life. If we can separate ourselves just a little bit from that, we can see it
Yeah.
through a slightly clearer lens.
Yeah, I mean, and on the layer of that, that's how also you can train your brain to feel happier, like through the use of neuroscience, just understanding how your brain works too. It's like in any given moment of time, there is a duality of what's happening in that moment. And maybe there's some unpleasant feelings for the energy that you're feeling, but also there are good things happening in that moment, even if the one good thing is just that I am breathing still here. And if you can train your brain to have what I call this as good as it gets moments in life and just notice what is going right for you, you will start to actually, your world will start to, you'll create that neural pathway in your brain because we have a pliable, malleable brain, and it's called neuroplasticity, and at any age you can do that. It gets harder when you're older, but I love microdosing it's psilocybin because it's like psilocybin is like that ball, that wedge that pushes the brain to change. It gets it rolling, and you're able to make much quicker connections happen because in 6 months time I didn't have PTSD symptoms anymore.
That's really amazing. I'm curious if you know, I don't. So if we don't know, we'll have to find this. Is there research around psilocybin microdosing and cortisol levels?
I don't know specifically. I mean, they've done studies with the nervous system and cortisol levels, specifically with babies. When they come out of the womb, I forget the exact story, and just I think they tested the baby for cortisol levels, and based off just their levels, it was conducive with if the baby is going to be able to calm down or not. The
Interesting.
higher level, they were not able to. And a lot of that has to do with what actually happened in the womb too, right? Because we share a nervous system with our mother. And but the cool silver lining of all of this, it doesn't matter if what happens to you when you're pregnant with your child, if you can start to restructure, rewire yourself when that baby is out in the world and start to change things for yourselves, the child will also start to rewire their nervous system too. And we know this. So it doesn't matter. Like if you're a parent out there and you have a lot of anxiety or something you've been carrying on and you see it being projected onto your kid, um, it can change. Kids are resilient. So you are the model. So as long as you start to understand yourself and start to be the model of like a pillar of calm and a sanctuary space, your children will naturally start to um, tune into that frequency, but it just takes time and consistency.
That co-regulation. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so women, I think I mentioned this already. Like, we are the doers. We tend to go, go, go. I see the most common thing is like we just don't stop to take care of ourselves. So if somebody's listening to this podcast and they're an entrepreneur or they're trying to start their own business, or maybe they're a mom and they're trying to figure out how to balance all these pieces of their life, but they don't necessarily feel like, maybe they feel like I do, like, oh, I don't really have childhood trauma. Like, I feel like I grew up pretty well and I was well taken care of. Are there things in
Yeah.
our daily life that we might look out for that would be like little signals to ourselves that's like, maybe you should look there a little bit more? Or, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's hard to have the self awareness to know that you need support in these areas. And so I'm
Mhm.
curious if there's something you found that women are coming to you with and saying, or that you found was like a red light or a green light in your head where you're like, oh, I need this now. Like, I get it. This is why I need to heal.
Well, my first instinct just comes back to the body because I think most of us are detached from our bodies. And I see most entrepreneur women coming in from a logic perspective. And so, like even my brother said it to the other day because none of my siblings and I have a relationship with my our mother. And he said it to me. I mean, this was not the other day, it was a couple years ago. He said, he was, really upset and crying, and he said, "Well, um, I didn't have it as bad as other kids. We had a pretty good life, Marie." And we did. Like, my mother was a great mother when I was, like, she did her best when I was really young, and things only started to fall apart when my father passed away. Um, but, when we get into that mindset and that logic brain to try to, like, compare things, we're just, taken away from our own story,
Mm,
because it doesn't matter if you didn't have the worst childhood compared to, like, things you've read online. It happened to you. It doesn't matter. Just, like, whatever happened to you, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. And some of what I see actually women struggling with is something that happened before their time. So it's like an energy that was passed down to them that they're now having to heal that doesn't belong to them. Because I've worked with a lot of women that will tell me, "I've just always felt like not enough, and I had, like, a great parents, but I just always felt like this." And then we just explore, like, their lineage, just like what happened with their grandparents and their great grandparents, or what do they think happened, or even past life stuff. If they believe that they've had a past life, you know, who knows if that's real, but if you believe it, it's still sitting in your body to the
hmm
ex so there's so many ways to look at it.
That's beautiful. I'm a big believer that whatever you believe to be true is what is true for you. So if you believe that there are past lives, then it's easy to see how you could be carrying things that aren't yours that you're going to continue to carry. Or if you believe that there is a God, maybe you believe that, this was given to you for some reason or whatever may be. But I think that recognizing those stories is a huge part of our healing.
Yeah. Yeah, and just, creating allowing yourself, because when you look through that emotional pain and, like, allow yourself to feel, as I've been doing, I've really feel that 2024. It's funny because I did a TikTok live last night, and I was just talking to people, just candidly sharing things about my mother wound, and I made a connection that I picked the word liberation this year, and I didn't realize it's connected to my mother wound because I truly feel liberated from my mother wound. Like, I can honestly say
Mm,
that I feel like the hooks that have been in with me my whole life are no longer in me, because I had this beautiful integration that happens when you get to more of that elephant awareness of yourself, that in an experience with a naturopath that I had just met for the first time. She said, "I am grateful for your existence." And I was like, "Whoa, no one has ever said that to me." And in that type of genuine type of way. And I noticed my body did not reject what she said. And that was
Mm,
really peaceful. And later, the next day, I integrated that why that was so important was because I have been living my life, my existence. That was the word that I needed. My existence has been dependent on what my mother needed me to be. And if I think about that, it seems really crowding and there's no space to grow in that existence because I'm always overshadowed by somebody else.
mm,
And so I don't have that shadow anymore looming over me, and I feel free to expand. And there's no more guilt or shame or feelings like I'm leaving somebody behind anymore.
mm. That's amazing. So I'm
Yeah,
hearing that we should all be looking for expansiveness and listening to that voice in our head for the little signs that maybe there's a different way for us to hear the story or a different way to see it. And if we're having a hard time doing that, then that's when we come find you so you can help us see through the many stories in our head and kind of pick out the ones that are going to move us forward the most.
totally. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm a big fan of healing in groups. Like, at least, if you never have, hire somebody, at least one person to work with you because it makes a difference when somebody can key into your energy and ask the important questions that need to be asked and help you see things that are there because you taught me this is that your body already knows the answer, right? And so I don't believe I'm really like telling people the answers. I'm just leading them to what they already know about
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. We can't do the work for someone else. We can just help them see what maybe they couldn't see before.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Well,
so that fuels empowerment. It's because when you go through your emotional pain, what I'm really holding people in, and which I love to do, is holding them in their power and their joy and what they get to create and what they get to wake up and do. It's like a whole different mindset of like that's when you're cooking with fire, when you realize how amazing this journey is despite the struggles, because nervous system healing is not about feeling better or getting all fixed. It's about creating the capacity to hold everything that life has to throw at you. And so a lot of people will say like, "Oh, you're riding the wave." But I see it as like you're just becoming the wave. You're being fluid with like something triggers you and you like start to like feel that energy and like you allow yourself to express it and the wave of you crests and you just flow into what the next thing is. You allow yourself to move through it. That's it.
mm, this is what I teach women too, is those ebbs and flows of their cycle, of their menstrual cycle is so similar in a way because sometimes your hormones take over and you want to do crazy things that are completely outside of your control. And so
Oh,
it's that exact same process of like recognizing what is truly you and what is a internally chemically induced state and being able
totally.
to move through it.
If you and yeah, I think it's so powerful if you wanna work on your hormones, understanding your nervous system is key to that because I have been living with postpartum, more depression type symptoms, and I have known on certain very dark days that I have said out loud to myself, "This is not you, Marie, because I have tried all my resources and nothing is working, so you're just gonna have to feel really bad for a while until it passes. It's not you, though, it's your body. It's just your body." That's
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's so much value in recognizing your body is kind of a separate entity to you. Like I always talk about people's bodies as her or him or something that you're taking care of because I think it's easier for women, especially, to care for something that's different than
Yeah,
themselves.
totally, I love that. Yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
that's why I like parts work because it's like, if you could look at your anxiety as a part of you instead of just this ambiguous thing, I used to wanna get rid of it. But when you wanna get rid of something, it's like it's energy you're trying to destroy, and you cannot do that. It just gets louder because it has
Mhm.
something to tell you. It's important for it to be here. And so you take care of it and you grow a relationship with it. When you grow that relationship with it, it feels safe to show you what it needs to show you to heal itself.
They're very parallel paths in a way, like mastering your body. Well, you can't really ever master your body, but getting to know your body, getting to know your nervous system, like these are friends
Yeah.
of ours to be taken care of in a way.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And I think it can be hard because some people are living with chronic illness where their body does not feel like their friend. And
Yeah.
so it's just, taking it day by day. People that live with Lyme's disease and stuff like that's got to be so hard. And I've seen that, people recover because they put their nervous system as part of it and be like, okay, well, this is what I can do today. This is the
Yeah.
goodness I'm seeing today. I can't get out of bed, but I can do this for myself.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful. I love hearing all about how you help women or support women in achieving more and being the best version of themselves. So this podcast was created because I was asking myself, what are the most important things I want to share with my daughter? And I know you're a mom and you have a daughter too. So I want to ask you at this point in your life, what's the one thing that you want to share with your daughter or our collective daughters?
Well, it's the thing I've been telling her since she was 0 months old is that she is safe. She is safe to be exactly who she is. And I think that's the most powerful thing I could tell her because now she's almost 4. She'll be 4 in a few days, and she is the most powerful 4-year-old I have ever met in my entire life. And, we joke that either she's gonna be running a Fortune 500 company or leading a prison riot. We don't know, but we're gonna be proud of her. She's gonna be standing in her power regardless.
Yes. She is the most powerful 4-year-old I've ever met too. She comes from
Yeah,
powerful
so
parents.
yeah, it's just letting her be powerful because I was not able to be that powerful as a little girl, and I love that she is. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're
And if
welcome.
anyone listening wants to find you and come be a part of your nervous system revolution, where do they find you?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok, on Instagram at the Somatic CEO. I'm also the somatic.ceo is my website where you can find I have a course that teaches you about your nervous system and how to work through it. And I am launching my second cohorts of Unleash CEO, which is basically teaching kind of wolf energy entrepreneurs how to microdose and utilize nervous system work and parts work together as a group program to stand more power in their business and enjoy their lives more. And I also offer one on one coaching. Yeah.
Amazing. Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. And it was super fun. And I hope we get to do it again and talk even more in depth about microdosing specifically. I think as it grows, it's going to be a really useful tool for healing and one that we are all going to want to know more about.